Free them all.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Black lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When workers are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When indigenous lives are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. 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 We got the power!
Hee 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 hee.
We're citizens. There are no privileged citizens. We're freedom of movement and vibrations are basic rights. Today, we join our brothers and sisters and all our relatives across the state of California who are taking to the streets in response to the criminalization and dehumanization of all those who are currently in immigrant prisons. In response to the long-standing, illegal medical neglect and violent repression they have been facing, and to the overall devaluation of life that is taking place in these concentration camps. The concentration camps that are defined as the COVID pandemic have turned into veritable death camps. In response to all of this, we are calling for the release of everyone held captive.
Hee 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 hee.
We are starting our work with shutting down the full-time Mesa immigrant prison and freeing them all. But it doesn't end there. It does not end there. It is only one step of many on the road to abolition of all forms of policing, surveillance, and imprisonment. We are just getting started!
Wow, Emery, thank you for your amazing words. That was really powerful. So a little intro about myself. I'm Ella. I'm part of the Detention Resistance. We're a collective organizing in accompaniment with refugees and migrants inside the Otay Mesa Detention Center. We know what's happening in these detention centers, and it's inhumane. We want to make sure that nobody's voices are being heard, that they are not being silenced by the state, and we want them to know that they are not alone and that people care about them. They are not criminals and they deserve human dignity. As a collective, we help by providing common
I do not get to get. I cannot pay for rent down here. A lot of my people can't pay rent down here. A lot of the culture was stolen. I am the youngest fluent speaker. I am 25. The youngest. Can you believe that? I just want everyone to sit with that for a second. This wall is the current fight that we're fighting right now as a Korean nation. And it is intersectional, this work. Immigration, wall work, Black Lives Matter. There's a whole bunch of movements that are happening right now in this day and time. The government is realizing that the people have the power. We have the power. And each and every single one of us can do something about it every day. Every day when you wake up, you can say, I am waking up on Kumeyaay land. And the ancestors died protecting this land. And I can do something about it. I can correct people when they say Kumeyaay wrong. Kumeyaay. I'm going to poke you in your eye if you say it wrong. That's how I remember it. That's why I tell my kids. It's Kumeyaay. And if you say it wrong, I'm going to poke you in your eye. So I just want everyone to, be safe out there. Protect each other as always. This land has been ours since time immemorial. I want to acknowledge that too. There's some colonial rhetoric that's going on and saying that there's people here prior to us. But in our creation story, and what we know is truth, we have been a part of this land since the beginning of our time. And they don't respect our indigenous knowledge. They see us as less than. Every single day that rhetoric is pushed out by another PhD person, it dehumanizes us. Every single day, just like how the people in the detention center are dehumanized. They're dehumanizing us in textbooks too. So I want everyone to educate yourself about how intersectional this work is. Reach out. Acknowledge you're on Kumeyaay land. Please correct someone whenever you hear them say, Kumeyaay. Please correct them. But yeah, the indigenous liberation is tied into Black liberation, is tied into Latinx liberation, all of it. So I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
From Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go. From Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go. From Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go. Palestine to Mexico,
All the walls have got to go.
from Palestine to Mexico,
go. To Mexico. All the walls have got to go. 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 All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
All the walls have got to go.
From Palestine to Mexico.
Hello? Thank you, Liz, for your words. Up next, we have Simeon Mann from the Critical Refugee Studies Collective. Give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really good to be here with you all today. I just want to start by saying something that I think we all already know, but that needs to be said out loud and needs to be repeated again and again. The Otay Mesa Detention Center is a deadly place. It is a deadly place. Calling it a detention center is a euphemism that hides the inherently deadly conditions of being locked up in a cage, being deprived of human interactions, being deprived of healthy foods, sanitary conditions, medical provisions. These deadly conditions preceded the pandemic, so COVID-19 only exacerbated these already existing deadly conditions. So we're standing here today with at least 233 cases of COVID-19 in the prison already. We are not asking for the reform of that institution. We are calling for shutting it down. Shutting it down, we're going to free them all, and then we're going to abolish ICE. So I'm speaking on behalf of a group called the Critical Refugee Studies Collective, and its mission is to amplify the voices of refugees and asylum seekers by giving them a platform to share their own stories, right? In order to counteract the racist narratives that says that they are criminals, that they are terrorists, or on the other extreme, that they're utterly helpless and need American help and humanitarianism. Right, so the problem with this narrative is that the United States has not been an innocent bystander. This country has played a direct role in displacing people throughout Central America and throughout the world, forcing them to flee. The United States has a long, violent history of backing military coups, waging counterinsurgencies, toppling democratic governments, supporting dictatorships and pursuing neoliberal policies, all of which have caused the widespread instability, systemic poverty, and violence in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and elsewhere. So when people ask, why are they here? We need to connect the dots for them. We need to say they wouldn't be here if the United States was not there. Right? The violence that they are fleeing is the violence of the United States. So one thing that I want to just point out is that here in San Diego, we're directly implicated in this violence. I'm not just talking about OMDC, I'm talking about the defense industry, the weapons manufacturers, the military bases, the military training facilities, all of which are directly related to the militarized violence, right? All of which profit from the militarized violence abroad and the crisis at OMDC. So we live in one of the most militarized places in the country, and OMDC is one piece of this larger infrastructure that needs to be dismantled piece by piece. And I just want to end by acknowledging that we are standing here today waging the struggle on stolen land, that we stand in solidarity with the Kumeyaay people, who are fighting at this moment against the border wall and the further desecration of their lands. And they are reminding us that abolishing ICE, abolishing prisons, abolishing police, all of that is part of the work of abolishing empire. And that is where we need to get to, and we're starting that right here and right now. Thank you.
No borders, no nation, stop the deportation. No borders, no nation, stop the deportation. No borders, no nation, stop the deportation.
Deportations.
No borders, no nation,
Stop the deportations.
no borders, no nation,
Stop the deportations.
no borders, no nation, stop the deportation. No borders, no nation, stop the deportation. Who's got the power? We got the power.
You're good, don't worry.
People power. All right, everybody. Our next speaker, I'm honored to present to you Alex from Armadillo's Search and Rescue Committee.
Alright, sorry about that. We actually have a call from inside the detention center. And they're gonna talk to y'all right now. Give us 1 second. So, who we have on the phone is a migrant from Guatemala detained at OMDC right now.
Hola, comunidad de San Diego y público en general. Soy un inmigrante guatemalteco de 41 años de edad y estoy detenido desde enero 9 de 2019 hasta el presente. Y les mando un saludo muy fuerte desde el centro de detención de los Mesa. Quisiera decirles que todas las condiciones de este centro han sido muy malas para mí desde antes y durante la pandemia del coronavirus. Yo soy un inmigrante que tengo una condición médica muy débil y eso me pone en riesgo de contagiarme muy fácil del coronavirus. Y en mayo del 2020, o sea, de este año, hace apenas 3 meses aproximadamente, ahí se comunicó que yo estaba en la lista para ser liberado por la crisis del coronavirus, pero ahí simplemente decidió que ya no iba a ser liberado. Y en vez de eso, yo he sufrido maltratos y abusos físicos y mentales. Y peor aún, el servicio médico de esta detención es inadecuada y la atención médica se me ha negado en varias ocasiones, poniendo mi vida en peligro médico. Ahora, yo les pido por favor para que puedan transmitir este mensaje de auxilio de parte de un inmigrante guatemalteco detenido en la detención de Mesa a algún líder de la comunidad o líder religioso para que aboguen por mí y así puedan hablar con las autoridades de ICE para que yo pueda ser liberado de custodia de esta detención, ya que yo tengo temor de infectarme y morirme del coronavirus. Aún siendo las cosas más peor, ICE no está siguiendo las reglas o las condiciones que el CDC ha puesto, o sea, las autoridades del CDC, de mantener la sana distancia. Al contrario, ha seguido trayendo a más inmigrantes, los ha detenido más y los ha puesto en cuarentena, y después de la cuarentena hay los va a poner en diferentes unidades, por el cual está aumentando la población, las unidades, y eso hace que todos nosotros estemos en peligro, tanto como los nuevos que van llegando de la cuarentena, como nosotros que ya estamos acá. Esto es un mensaje que quisiera que todo alguien que quisiera escuchar este mensaje, ya que es muy serio. Este coronavirus es una enfermedad muy seria y preocupa mucho a todos, ya sea en la comunidad o en Bolsa en general. Bueno, entonces quiero decirles muchas gracias por esta atención que ustedes me han brindado y por su apoyo emocional y moral.
The coronavirus COVID-19 of COVID-19, and that he had originally thought it told us that he would be released because of that in May, but then out of the blue they decided to withdraw that decision, never do an explanation, and instead because what happened since is that he has been suffering not only more mental but also physical needs at the hands of ICE, as the treatment is really bad, and so that we're grateful that we're here and that he
For the beautiful, America the great, a country built with blood and sweat and immigrant slaves. America the beautiful, America the great, who made this land the greatest on the face of the earth today. America the beautiful, America the great, your flaming torch once lit the night for us to come and stay. America the beautiful, America the great, starvation, death, and tyranny, we risk our lives to escape. America the beautiful, America the great, on your shores we disembark to feel your warm embrace. America the beautiful, America the great, bitter tears now trickle down and overflow your lake. America the beautiful, America the great, a vicious circle once again, no peace, injustice, hate. America the beautiful, America the great, one month the color of our stupid people who has to pay. America the beautiful, America the great, please abolish slavery, gender, color, creed, and race. America the beautiful, America the great, I will always love you till my dying day. America the beautiful, America the brave, I pray you hear our prayers and implement and change. America the beautiful, America the great, for in the end there is one God who loves us all the same. Thank you very much. May God bless you all. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. And now Ellie will come with the translation.
América la bella, América la grandiosa. De esto no hay cuestión y no puede haber error. América la bella, América la grandiosa. Con un corazón roto y pesado, te hablo a ti el día de hoy. América la bella, América la grandiosa. ¿Qué pasó con la tierra del libre y el hogar de los valientes? América la libre, América la grandiosa. Donde los veteranos que arriesgan sus vidas en la guerra son experiencias. América la bella, América la grandiosa. Un país construido con la sangre y sudor de inmigrantes desesperados. América la bella, América la grandiosa. ¿Quién hizo de esta tierra la más grandiosa en el mundo? América la bella, América la grandiosa. La antorcha en llamas alumbró la noche para que nos podamos quedar. América la bella, América la grandiosa. Por hambre, muerte y tiranía arriesgamos nuestras vidas para escapar. América la bella, América la grandiosa. En tus costas desembarcamos para sentir su abrazo cálido. América la bella, América la grandiosa. Lágrimas amargas ahora caen y llenan tus labios. América la bella, América la grandiosa. Un círculo vicioso otra vez, no paz, injusticia y odio. América la bella, América la grandiosa. El color de nuestra piel dicta quién tiene que pagar. América la Bella, América la Grandiosa. Por favor, abole la labor, género, color, el credo y la raza. América la Bella, América la Grandiosa. Siempre te amaré hasta que muera. América la Bella, América la Grandiosa. Rezo porque escuches nuestro llanto de ayuda y implementes cambios. América la Bella, América la Grandiosa. Porque al final hay un solo Dios que nos ama a todos igual. Gracias.
Okay, now we have student Abolish.
Hello guys, good evening. Yeah, my name is Alex Ortigosa and I belong to Armadillo. And I just wanna say thanks to all of you to be here. And I wanna show you this. This photography belongs to this guy that came to this side of the border, looking for his dreams. He passed away right there down on this pole, on this bridge, and the border patrol knew were watching, but they really didn't care. We were there, and when the medic just came and get there, the medic said that he has 45 minutes to 1 hour to pass away. We get there late. We get there like 1 hour after he passed away. Well, because he was looking for his dreams. Él dejó 3 hijos, dejó una niña y dejó a su esposa. Él solo venía buscando sus sueños. Y en verdad es bastante triste lo que está pasando en toda la frontera. En estos momentos, la semana pasada, un grupo llamado No More Deaths right there in Arizona, his humanitarian aid was raided by Border Patrol. Se llevaron a 30 personas. Algunos de ellos fueron liberados porque el Border Patrol no quiere que la media comience a hablar acerca de la realidad que está pasando en Arizona. El día de ayer los compañeros de Armadillos fueron allá para Arizona, en su camino pasaron a dejar una cruz para él, para José Federico, solamente para honrar su travesía y que la gente nunca olvide que todo esto está pasando durante todo el trayecto para buscar sus sueños. Aquí tengo cerca de 30 documentos que yo llené. Estos documentos es de gente que está buscando a su familia que se pierde en el desierto. Y es bastante grave. Estos 30 documentos son solamente del mes de julio. Entonces no nos podemos imaginar cuánta gente está muerta en los desiertos. Es bastante grave, es bastante triste. Nosotros somos solamente un grupo igual de ayuda humanitaria. Vamos al desierto a buscar gente. Lamentablemente, por lo regular siempre encontramos restos humanos. En el 2017 encontramos un cuerpo que supuestamente Border Patrol había hecho que ya lo habían levantado. Y el año pasado los compañeros de No Más Muertes volvieron a encontrar el mismo cuerpo. Quiere decir que Border Patrol está mintiendo. Ellos no habían ido a recoger el cuerpo. Ellos no se habían contactado con sus familias para regresar el cuerpo a donde debería de estar. Entonces es bastante grave todo esto. Algunas personas van a morir por falta de agua, otras van a morir ahí en el desierto de la travesía. Pero la realidad es que quienes están matando a esta gente son las fronteras. No es ni el agua, ni el calor, ni lo difícil del viaje, son las fronteras. Entonces solamente quiero decirles que nadie es ilegal en el estado rural, en la tierra rural. Muchas gracias.
Yeah.
You too, right?
Yes.
Kristen.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you. Officially.
Just a quick announcement, we have 3 more speakers, and after we're going direct to the march. So up next is Justin Akers Chacon. from the American Federation of Teachers, Local 1931, part of the Immigrant Student Support Committee. Give them a round of applause.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to share a few thoughts to contribute to this discussion. I appreciate everybody who's spoken so far and really echo their sentiments. I wanted to start by saying that we're in a deep economic crisis. We're in a crisis of capitalism. And for most working class people and poor people around the world, this has been an economic crisis that's been going on since 2007. And it's a crisis that has led capitalism to foist upon us deep crisis, war, we've seen revolutions, and we've seen displacement around the world. Since 2009, there's been 50 million people displaced around the world. And the 10 years before that, taken together over the last 20 years, there's now about 280 million people displaced. If you put all the displaced people together, it would be the 5th largest country in the world. This is what the crisis has meant for most people. And we're entering into another deeper crisis in which the only solution is more of the same. We've seen the way the U.S. has responded to this crisis has been to become more aggressive in reshaping the globe to meet the needs of U.S. capital. That has meant military interventions from the Middle East, and especially an intensification of military aggression in the Americas. And we see a correlation between this military aggression and displacement. We also see the other arm of imperialism, economic imperialism, in which the U.S. government has forcefully opened many of the economies of Central America, the Caribbean, Latin America as a whole, in order to force open those economies to U.S. capital, so that U.S. capital can take over, can restructure, and can transfer the wealth stolen from the people, stolen from their labor, transfer it back to the United States. This is what we are seeing, and this is what is being on offer. So in response to this crisis, the U.S. has criminalized migration intensively, specifically over the last 2 decades, but going back 4 decades. And criminalizing immigration has actually become a function, a pillar of the U.S. capitalist economy. In order to prevent workers from getting access to equal rights, forming unions, living decent lives, and instead we see the purposeful suppression of their wages, the criminalizing of their communities, the incarceration of whole families as a way to keep millions of people's wages low, and so that the value of their labor is transferred into profits. Second point I want to make is that Democrats are not the solution to this problem.
Facts.
And by voting for Democrats, we're essentially voting for this continuation of the same crisis. And I'll remind you that in 1992 to 1994, the Democrats controlled Congress, they controlled the presidency, and they used that opportunity to push through the North American Free Trade Agreement, the opening up of Mexico, which paved the way for the opening up of all these other economies, the displacement of millions of people, and they also used that opportunity to create Operation Gatekeeper, the beginning of the deadly militarization phase of the U.S.-Mexico border that has since been extended to the border between Mexico and Central America. In 2006, there was an uprising of millions of immigrant workers, migrant workers and their families and their allies that changed the political equation in this country. The Democrats under Obama won the control of Congress in 2006, and they won the presidency in 2008. They had a supermajority. They didn't need one single vote in order to pass a legalization and to give millions of people access to citizenship. Instead, they refused to do that, and they passed the greatest expansion of immigration enforcement in history.
Facts.
In 2006, Hillary Clinton ran on that same platform. Except she went further and said, if you elect me, I'll send the Central American children back. In 2020, Joe Biden was vice president under the greatest expansion of mass repression of immigrants in U.S. history. Mass deportation, expansion of the private detention system, and the creation of family detention centers. What's he promising this time around? Not much. The Democrats have refused to make immigration a central plank in this cycle of elections, instead conceding that terrain to the far right. He promises to support DACA. He promises to pass a 2013 piece of legislation which basically is a handout to corporations by making legalization contingent upon working 10 to 15 years of your life. And then you qualify. You don't get it, you qualify. And over that 10 to 15 years, if you try to organize a union or you try to do something to improve the conditions of work at your workplace, you can be fired and be disqualified. This is what the Democrats are offering. A couple more points really quick. In California, it's the same. We have pretty much a one-party state. And while there's been some minor reforms in terms of offering more opportunities for immigrant youth, for example, California is not a friend, the California state government is not a friend of the immigrant population. Even AB 32, the bill that was passed last year, which supposedly shuts down for-profit private detention centers, is so full of loopholes it's virtually meaningless. It basically extends the life of these private detentions until 2028. And it contains language in the bill that says, if public immigration detention centers aren't built to replace the private ones, then the private ones can stay in place. This is essentially what they're offering. My concluding point is to talk about why we need to open the border and why we need to, like other people have said, abolish what I call the migra state. The Border Patrol, ICE, close the detention centers and people out. And I want to start by pointing out the moment we're in has raised the need for fundamental social reorganization in this country. The police, ICE, Border Patrol, the wall, the rest of the repressive apparatus needs to be seen as extensions of the same system, the way the capitalist system actually functions. And it relies on inventing new forms of state violence, of repression, to keep people in their place and push them down even further. The merging of the black and the migrant freedom struggles are interconnected through this system. And we also see it in terms of how capitalism is pushing immigrants and black people to the front lines of the reopening of capitalism, making them more susceptible to infection and death. These social movements gain the most power when they combine with labor at the point of production. After effectively supporting full legalization between 2000 and 2008, the Union Federation I'm part of, the AFS-CIO, backed away and conceded that space to the right. But now we're seeing new surges within the labor movement, and it's raising its heads in solidarity with immigrants and the black freedom struggle. Last year, during Trump's budget impasse for funding for his wall, airline workers, led by flight attendants, threatened a general strike of all aviation if Trump didn't back off as the government shut down and demand funding for his wall. Within 24 hours of declaring a threat of a general strike, Trump backed down. Workers in Mexico last year organized 45 wildcat strikes across USO and maquiladoras, demanding higher wages and creating the conditions in which we can begin to see unions organizing on both sides of the border, raising wages for all workers, and undermining the need for that pinche border wall. Migrant refugee people inside the detention centers themselves have been part of this movement and in many ways leading it, organizing 60 hunger strikes over the course of this year, demanding protected personal equipment, better food, and better conditions. This shows the potential of the unity of these social forces to come together to abolish the migra state, to end the system of incarceration and repression, and to build a genuine liberation struggle. And you're part of it, and you should be part of this coalition, the Free Them All Coalition, and all the constituent groups, because this is where we're going until we free them all. Thank you.
prisons and jails and detention camps, but then they have to ask for rights. You can make money off of people being held in the jails and prisons, but then they have to ask for rights. Nobody can vote, even though you're making decisions about their lives. They're not entitled to vote. How does that work? My name is Curtis Howard. I'm the director of All of Us Are None San Diego chapter. We have 27 chapters nationwide. Now we push prisoners' rights. We support incarcerated people and their families. I did 15 years in Pelican Bay State Prison, one of the highest security prisons in the state of California. I went in as a gang member. And I walked the prison yard and was engrossed in prison politics. Riots, I've been shot in prison, I've been pepper sprayed countless times. I've engaged in all of that madness. But you know, one thing transitioned me from the life is when they start giving me jobs and where I would get 15 or 18 cents an hour. And the supervisor that's working in there was making $30 an hour for me to do his work. I'm feeding the prisoners, and he's getting the paycheck. They're waking me up at 4 o'clock in the morning to have breakfast ready, a job that I would make $25 an hour for, where I'm getting 10 cents. These type of things start pissing me off, and I start looking at this instead of looking at other people in there like they're my enemies. I start seeing this prison for profit thing that was going on. And it transitioned me because I didn't like being played. So the tough guy stuff went out the door. I didn't care anymore. And that's what's going on now. Like our brother who's in Otay Mesa, who spoke about being ill. They don't want to let him out because they want to profit. Now I had a homeboy named Terry. We called him T-Roll. It was a name that us, the Crips, gave him. Now T-Roll went to prison and received 25 years to life for a petty crime. When I saw him, I said, man, you've been locked up 10 years so far. What did you get busted for? He said they charged him with robbery in order to give him 3 strikes. They charged him with robbery, and they called it robbery by fraud. He didn't have the nerve to pull a gun on anybody, and he didn't have the physical prowess to take anything from anybody. So he talked somebody out of some money. And that was robbery by fraud. They gave him 25 years to life. When T-Roll was in prison, he started having kidney failure. He got extremely sick. He lost all of his weight, and they put him on dialysis and gave him just months to live. Now you would think that they would release somebody like this, but this is what prison profits is all about. It's about money over life, man. And when I heard the brother in Otay Mesa prison talking about how he was ill and how they changed his release date and how they reneged and went back on what they said because they know that they're going to lose money. T-Roll stayed in that prison with kidney failure. He went on dialysis, and we fought organizations like All of Us Are None, and you all fought to abolish the 3 strikes law. Now we fought for it, and they didn't abolish it, but they did modify it enough for T-Roll to be released.
Which one? The gimbal.
Unfortunately,
This, like 3 hours. 3 hours max.
And he should have been out a long time ago.
Yeah,
So he did
It works
that
really
when
well.
he
Yeah,
passed
and I'm
away.
live, so it works perfect.
After undergoing all the
And then I have
stress in prison and
if I need to, it
took and
charges
sapped
pretty
up
fast
the rest
too.
of his
So
health by being in there. He stressed out and he died.
for like $100,
Just
it's
months,
worth it.
After being released.
Yeah.
And this is why I have dedicated my life to fight to abolish prison for profit. The prison industrial complex, release the immigrants, release all of our prisoners at Otay Mesa, release prisoners, overturn and abolish and get rid of the entire prison for profit system. Now you know I have to do one more thing before I go. Because as all of us are known, when we end our meetings, we end it with a chant. I say all of us, and you guys say or none. We do it 3 times. All of us
Or none.
all of us
Or none.
all of us
Or none.
Right.
Thank you for this. Now we have someone from San Diego Freedom Fighters. We have Candy from Asian Solidarity Collective speak with us today. For a big round of applause.
Do y'all hear me? Sometimes I like to talk. Beyond bars, beyond borders, protect one another from these white supremacist orders! Beyond bars, beyond borders, protect one another from these white supremacist orders! My name is DJ Cutting Candy, pronoun she, her, hers. And I have been a community organizer for over 20 years. I am part of Asian Solidarity Collective. And as an Asian American, a Filipinx who learned by Black feminists and Black abolitionists, I have been an abolitionist for over 20 years. And here's what I've learned. We are in this historic moment where we must reimagine a world without bars and borders. But we don't have to imagine that far, because we are right here, right now, in this moment. By being here, continuing to fight, we are doing more than just looking to the horizon towards abolition. We are leaping into the horizon, moving towards that portal to liberation. Beyond bars, beyond borders, protect one another from these white supremacist orders. More than 40% of migrants in the U.S. come from Asia. Out of 18 million Asians in this country, more than 1.7 million are undocumented, and Southeast Asians are 5 times more likely to be deported for criminal convictions. It is clear that Asian communities are also highly impacted by mass incarceration, immigration, and deportation. Within a span of 5 months between 2019 to 2020, 2 Filipinos, Dennis Carolino and Toby Diller, were killed by the San Diego Police Department. In May 2020, a 74-year-old South Korean man died by suicide while in the custody of ICE. These tragic incidents are not isolated. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security and ICE are deeply entangled with the criminal justice system through unmeasured programs that give ICE access to jails. The collaboration between ICE and the criminal justice system was forged to uphold an inherently anti-Black and anti-Indigenous system. It is critical that we continue to build a mass united front for our shared liberation. Beyond bars, beyond borders, protect one another from these white supremacist orders. So when I say shared liberation, I also mean this in a global context. Because when we think about policing
border militarization, concentration camps. I think about that in a global policing perspective as well. How global imperialists of the world can colonize our homelands, deplete our country's resources, impoverish our people, yet our peoples cannot migrate to and from at free will to escape the war that imperialists and colonizers have brought to our homelands, the diseases that they have brought to our country, the poverty that they have brought, and the policing that they have brought, which brings me to how global policing manifested in 1898 in the Philippines through the white man's burden to civilize, yet again, brown and black savages of the world by taking a Kipling poem as a means to justify colonizing our people of the Philippines. This is the white supremacist logics, or rather ill logics of global empire. Wherein the Filipino people, as my friend Dr. Robin Rodriguez says, were figured by the American imagination as the justification to colonize our people. So when you see someone like Duterte, who enacts the propaganda of a drug war against the people of the Philippines, when you have Filipinos who are policing other Filipinos to protect U.S. interests, and by that killing thousands upon thousands, really a genocide amongst our people. Just like the way the U.S. drug war instilled by Nixon, and then instilled, further launched by the Reaganomics, the original Make America Great Again president. Utilized the war on drugs along with the CIA to criminalize and target black communities as they were continuously rising up and pushing back is the same exact reason Duterte has pushed this drug propaganda as a means to control poor people, as a means to protect. This is policing by the global empire by ways of imperialism and colonization amongst our people. And we are still colonial subjects decolonizing. Global policing is a framework. Thank you. Global policing is a framework in which we must name so that we can actively push for an abolitionist framework, so we can make visible the kinds of violences that have been desensitized and normalized, that there are those who can't even imagine or fathom a world without police. But those of us who are here, we all know that policing is working against black lives and the way it's positioning itself against so many other lives across borders, across lands, across waters, which means we must be actively resisting through more than just a simplified notion of decolonization, but one that pushes back against capitalism, imperialism, globalization, and empire. That is decolonization. When we think of being beyond bars and beyond borders and of freedom from concentration camps, we must connect the ties to the ways in which we have